Most people make up their mind about who you are in the first 10 minutes, and after that, they quit looking. My family settled on their version of me sometime back in the early 80s. Roy, the older boy, the one who didn't quite get it together, and nobody ever bothered to open the file again. That suited me right down to the ground. A man nobody's watching can build damn near anything he wants, right out in the open, and they'll walk past it for 30 years and never once see it for what it is. Welcome to Dad's harsh revenge. Pour yourself a cup of something, get settled in, because this one takes its time getting where it's going. Drop a comment and tell me what town you're watching from. I read more of them than you'd think. Hit that like button if you've ever been the one folks underestimated. And subscribe, because the stories only get better from here. Alright, let me tell you about my brother, and the Thanksgiving he forgot who he was talking to. I drove out to New Carlisle that morning the way I drive everywhere, in a 2004 F-150 with 290,000 miles on it, and a crack in the windshield I keep meaning to fix and never do. It's a good truck. It starts in January, it hauls what I need it to haul, and it has never once made me feel like I had to be anybody other than who I am. My sister Joanne hosts Thanksgiving now, in the same house we grew up in, the little two-story on Maple with the porch that leans a hair to the left. Our mother left it to her when she went into the memory care place over in Springfield, and Joanne keeps it about the way Mom did, which is to say warm and a little cluttered and smelling like sage and butter from about 6 in the morning on. I got there around noon, and I did what I always do. I shut the engine off, and I sat in the truck for a minute. Just sat. Let my hands rest on the wheel, and watched the leaves come down across the yard. I'm 64 years old, and I've buried my wife and both my parents, and I've signed papers that made and unmade things most of these people will never hear about. But I still need that minute in the driveway before I walk into a room full of Whitfields. You have to set your face before you go in. You have to remind yourself how much you're going to let land and how much you're going to let slide off. My wife used to call it my airlock. Ruth had a word for everything. Inside it was loud and warm and good. The lions were on with the sound down. My niece had 3 kids running circles through the kitchen, and Joanne was waving a wooden spoon at all of them, like a woman directing traffic in a storm. I hugged my sister. She held onto my arms a second longer than she needed to, the way she's done since Ruth passed, like she's checking I'm still standing. I told her the house smelled like Mom's, and she got a little shine in her eyes and told me to go sit down before I made her cry into the gravy. And then there was Dale. You hear my brother before you see him. He's got a voice built for a bigger room than the one he's standing in, and he uses all of it, all the time. Dale's 57, 6 years and change behind me, and somewhere along the line, he decided that being the loud one made him the smart one. He was over by the fireplace in a quarter zip the color of a golf course, holding a glass of something brown, telling a story to my cousin's husband that ended with Dale laughing harder than anybody else in the circle. Dale always laughs hardest at his own stuff. He's his own best audience, and he's been packing that house for 50 years. He owns the Ford dealership out on Route 235. Whitfield Auto, big lit-up sign, balloons on the weekends, his own face on a billboard by the on-ramp, doing a thumbs up that has haunted my drive into town for going on a decade. He's got a house in a development with a fountain at the entrance, and a wife named Sherry who is kinder than he deserves, and a boat he uses maybe 4 days a year. By every measure my brother has spent his life chasing, Dale won, and by the only measure I've ever cared about, he never even found the starting line. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, look who crawled out, he boomed when he saw me, Big Roy. He's called me Big Roy since we were kids, back when I had a foot of height on him, and it meant something. Now he says it like a punchline. He came across the room and gripped my shoulder, one of those grips that's supposed to read as affection and lands like a man planting a flag. Wasn't sure you'd make it. Figured you might be out there communing with that truck. Truck runs fine, Dale. I bet it does. I bet it does. He looked me up and down, the Carhartt jacket, the boots. You know, I could put you in something with heated seats for nothing, right? Family discount. Practically pay you to take it off the lot. He grinned around the room to make sure people were tracking. But you won't. Stubborn as the day's long, I like my truck, I said, and let it go at that. We sat down to eat around 2. Joanne's table doesn't fit everybody, so the kids ate at a card table in the living room, and the rest of us packed in elbow to elbow with the good plates out, the ones with the little gold rim that only see daylight twice a year. There was the turkey and the green bean thing with the crispy onions and Joanne's cornbread dressing that is the actual reason any of us show up. For a while it was good. It was real good. There's a particular comfort in a room full of people who've been sitting at the same table long enough to stop performing for each other, and for about 40 minutes I had it, and I was grateful for it. Then Joanne tapped her glass and said somebody ought to say what they were thankful for, and we went around, and it was sweet and a little sloppy the way it always is, and then it got to Dale. He stood up. He didn't have to stand up. Nobody else stood up. But Dale stood, and he buttoned his quarter zip like he was about to address a sales floor, and he looked around the table with that easy warmth he can turn on like a tap. "I'll keep it short," he said, which is a thing my brother has said 1,000 times and meant zero. It's been a heck of a year. Sherry and I put in the new kitchen. The dealership had its best quarter in 5 years. Both grandkids made honor roll. He nodded along to his own list. I'm a blessed man. And I look around this table and I think, man, we did all right, didn't we? Most of us. A little pause there. A little turn of the head. Most of us figured it out. And then he looked at me. He didn't even try to hide it. He let his eyes come to rest on me, and he let everybody at the table follow them there, and he smiled the smile he probably practices in the bathroom mirror. I mean, some of us, he said, are sitting here 64 years old, lost their wife, no offense, Roy, God rest her, driving the same beat-up truck they had when Clinton was in office, living in that little place out by the reservoir, nothing in the bank, nothing to show for it. And we just keep on going, don't we? He raised his glass a couple inches in my direction, like a toast, like I was the heartwarming part of his story. But hey, he showed up. That's something. We're proud of you for showing up, Big Roy. The room went quiet. Not the good kind. There's a particular silence that drops on a table when somebody's gone a step too far, when everybody feels it at the same instant, and not one person knows what to do with their hands. Joanne's smile froze and her eyes cut straight to me, sharp and worried and sorry all at once. My cousin's husband suddenly found something fascinating about his plate. Sherry put her fork down very carefully. It was the no offense, God rest her, that did it. I want to be clear about that. I have eaten a lot of Dale's needling over the years and let most of it run off me like rain off a barn roof. But he dragged Ruth into it. He used my wife's death as a soft cushion to land an insult on, and he did it at the table she used to laugh at, and something that had been sitting very still inside me for a very long time opened one eye. You have to understand what Dale didn't. He didn't know that Ruth's name is on the side of a 6-story building in downtown Columbus, 80 miles southwest of where he was standing, polishing his glass. He didn't know there are 240 people who get up every morning and go to work for a company I built, or that the ground his dealership sits on, the lot, the showroom, the service bays, the billboard with his thumbs up on it, is not, and has not been for 14 months, his to lose. He didn't know any of that, because for 40 years I had made absolutely sure of it, and I had done it on purpose. I set my fork down, I folded my napkin, and laid it next to my plate, the way Ruth taught me, the way a man does when he wants his hands free and clear. Don't you worry about me, Dale, I said. My voice came out level and easy. I've never needed to raise it to make a point. I do just fine. He laughed, relieved I wasn't going to make it weird. There he is. Always so, Joanne. I turned to my sister and I gave her a real smile, the kind that means it. This dressing is the best you've ever made. Mom would have been jealous. Joanne blinked, and her face came back online, and she beamed at me, grateful as anything. Oh, stop it. Eat. Both of you. Eat. I picked my fork back up. Dale sat down, satisfied, still talking, already on to the next thing, because Dale is always already on to the next thing. He has never in his life sat inside a moment long enough to feel its full weight land. I have always been the opposite. I sit in moments. I let them tell me what they have to say. And as I cut another bite of turkey, I felt something quiet and clean click into place inside my chest, like a deadbolt turning in a lock that had been waiting a long, patient while for the right key. I didn't smile. I didn't say a word. But I knew, sitting there at that crowded table with the gold-rimmed plates and my mother's dressing, that my brother had finally said the thing that was going to cost him. He just didn't have any idea yet what the bill came to. They say pride is the most expensive thing a man can carry, and the worst part is it never sends a statement. You just go on running the tab. Dale had been running his since we were boys. The receipt came due 3 days later. I left around 5, hugged Joanne, told her I'd see her at Christmas, and drove home in the dark with the heater going and the radio off. I didn't feel angry on the drive. I want to be honest about that. I felt the way you feel when a long stretch of weather finally breaks, like something that had been pressing on you decided to move along. Now, before I tell you the rest, do me that one favor. If you've ever sat at a table and swallowed something so the day wouldn't blow up, hit subscribe. There's a lot of you watching who never have, and it doesn't cost you a thing, and it tells the algorithm to keep these stories coming. Drop a like while you're there. All right. The phone rang Saturday morning. I keep an office in Columbus, on the top floor of the building with Ruth's name on it, but I don't go in much anymore. Mostly I work from the cabin out by the reservoir, the little place Dale likes to make jokes about, which is in fact a one-story log house Ruth and I built ourselves in 1998 on 11 wooded acres, and which I would not trade for any house with a fountain at the entrance you could name. I was on the back porch with my coffee watching the geese argue over the water when my phone lit up. Dale. I let it ring twice, not to be dramatic. I just needed those two rings to decide which version of myself was going to pick up. The brother, or the man who'd been quietly carrying my brother's whole life on his back since 2009 without him ever knowing it. I answered on the third ring. Dale, Roy. Hey. And right away I knew something was wrong because the voice that came through the phone was not the voice my brother uses. It was smaller, it had the air let out of it. You got a minute? He had a lot more than a minute coming, but I just said, I got a few, what's going on? I heard him pacing. Dale's paced when he's scared since he was 8 years old, back and forth on a hardwood floor somewhere. So look, I'm just gonna say it straight, okay, because you're family. A breath. Ford's not renewing the franchise. They notified me Thursday. Some realignment thing, consolidating dealers. They're cutting the small markets loose. I've got, 90 days. Another breath, faster. And that's not even the worst of it. The land. Roy, the land the dealership's on. I lease it, you know that. I've always leased it from the Hendricks estate. Somebody bought it. Some holding outfit out of Columbus bought the whole parcel and the note on my service expansion, all of it, last year, and I didn't even... And now there's a letter saying they're not renewing the ground lease either, and if I don't have the franchise I can't move the inventory, and the floor plan lender's gonna want their money, and Roy, His voice cracked clean in half. I'm gonna lose it. 40 years, I'm gonna lose all of it. I sat there on the porch with my coffee going cold in my hand and I watched the geese, and for a second I didn't say anything at all. Roy? You there? I'm here. I wouldn't call you if I had another play. You know that. I know Thursday, at dinner, I was out of line, I know that. Sherry already chewed me out, He stopped trying to apologize because apologizing has never been a thing Dale knows how to do without getting lost in it. I just need to know what to do. You were always the smart one, Roy. I know I never said it, but you were. Tell me what to do. I knew about the franchise. I'd known about the realignment for 2 months. And I knew exactly who'd bought the Hendricks land and the note on his service bays, because I'd signed the wire myself, sitting at my kitchen table, 14 months back, with no particular plan in mind except the same instinct that has served me my whole life. When a piece of ground that matters to your family comes up for sale, you buy it, and you keep your name off the paperwork, and you wait to find out why you did it. Now I knew why. Dale, I said, come into the city Monday. 9 o'clock. A pause. Into Columbus? For what? I might be able to help you. But you come to me, I'll text you the address. You, Roy, no offense, but you don't exactly. He caught himself. Even scared, even falling, my brother almost couldn't help it. I mean, who do you know in Columbus? 9 o'clock, Dale, I said. Don't be late. He was late. It was 9:22 when my front desk called up to say my brother was in the lobby. And that tells you everything you need to know about Dale, that he could be 3 days from losing everything he ever built and still not make a 9 o'clock. I told Dana to send him up, and I turned my chair toward the glass wall of my office so I could watch it happen. The elevator opened on the 6th floor of the Ruth Whitfield building, and Dale Whitfield walked out into the reception area of Cardinal Property Group, and he stopped like he'd hit a wall. I watched him take it in. The wide light-filled lobby, the river view out the east windows, the big bronze letters on the wall behind the desk, Cardinal Property Group, and under them, smaller, a line he was too far away to read yet. I watched Dana smile and say something to him, and watched him nod without hearing a word of it. He turned in a slow circle in the middle of that lobby like a man who'd opened what he thought was a closet door, and found a cathedral on the other side. I buttoned my jacket and walked out to meet him. Roy. He said my name like a question. He gestured at the room, the windows, all of it. "What is this? Do you work here? Are you—" "Come on back," I said. I walked him past the open floor, the rows of desks, the conference rooms with people in them, and I watched my brother walk through a room he'd been wrong about his entire life. We came to the glass wall by the east windows, where the donor portrait hangs in the atrium, and Dale slowed down because something had finally snagged. It's a good photograph. We took it the summer before she got sick. Ruth in a blue dress, laughing at something off camera, looking like she was about to tell whoever it was to knock it off. Underneath it, the brass plate, Ruth Ann Whitfeld, 1962 to 2023. Founder. Dale stood in front of it for a long time. That's. His voice had gone somewhere I'd never heard it go. That's Ruth. That's Ruth, I said. I opened the door to my office and held it for him. He came through and stopped so short I nearly walked into the back of him, because there on the wall behind my desk was the rest of it. The framed deeds. The first one, a strip mall in Reynoldsburg we bought in 1991 with money we didn't have, and a faith I mostly borrowed from her. The article from the Business Journal. The photo of the ribbon cutting on this building. And along the far wall, the map. A big framed county map of the whole region, with the cardinal holdings marked in red. The shopping centers, the storage facilities, the office parks, the medical buildings. The land out on Route 235 in New Carlisle, marked in red, same as all the rest. Dale found it. I watched him find it. I watched his eyes go to that little red mark out by his hometown, and I watched him understand. He turned around very slowly. "You," he said, "you're the holding company. Cardinal. You bought the Hendricks land. You bought my note. Sit down, Dale." He didn't sit. He couldn't. 40 years, he said, and his voice was shaking now. 40 years you let me. Big Roy the truck, nothing to show for it. And you owned the you've been. He pressed the heel of his hand against his forehead. How long? How long have you had all this? Sit down, I said again, gentler, and this time he did. He sat down across from me like a man who'd forgotten how a chair worked, and I went around and sat in mine, and I put my hands flat on the desk, and I let the quiet sit there as long as it needed to. Ruth taught me that. The silence does most of the work, she used to say, if you'll only have the nerve to let it. I left town in 1982, I said finally. You were 16. You probably don't remember it the way I do. After Dad passed and the farm went, everybody had me pegged as the one who dropped the ball. I was the oldest, I was supposed to hold it together, and I didn't, and nobody ever let me forget it. So I stopped trying to argue with it. I moved to Columbus with $400, and I took a job leasing commercial space, and I was good at it, Dale. Turns out I was real good, at the thing none of you ever thought I could do anything at. I nodded toward the atrium, toward the blue dress. And then I met a waitress at a diner on High Street who decided I was worth more than I'd been told, and the two of us started buying buildings. His jaw was tight. He remembered. We both knew he remembered. You met her once, I said, our wedding, 1989. You drove up, you stayed 2 hours, and on your way out the door you told our cousin, you didn't think I heard you, but I heard you. You said Roy married a waitress. She's nice enough, but she's nothing special. That boy was never going to amount to anything, and now he's locked it in. I let that sit. Ruth heard you too. She never told you that. She told me that night, and then she never mentioned it again. But I want you to understand something, Dale. Every building we ever bought, every deal we ever closed, the woman you called nothing special was sitting at the other side of the table from me, and she was the smartest person in every room she ever walked into. Dale's eyes had gone wet, not crying. Dale Whitfield would not cry in a stranger's office, except it was his brother's office, and that was almost worse. But close. Roy. I didn't, I was a kid. You were 23, I said. But that's not why I'm telling you. I'm telling you so you understand the rest of it. I opened the folder on my desk and I started laying it out, one page at a time, flat and even, like I was reading him the weather. 2009. The dealership almost went under in the crash. You remember. You scrambled, you got a loan from a community bank in Dayton, came through at the last minute, you told everybody you'd talked them into believing in you. I slid the page across. That wasn't the bank, Dale. I guaranteed that loan. Personally, the bank president was a tenant of mine. I made one phone call and I put up collateral and I told him to make it look like it came from him. He stared at the page, his mouth moved but nothing came out. 2016, Mom's memory care. $8,000 a month, and Medicaid wouldn't kick in for 2 years, and Joanne was about to remortgage her house to cover it. Another page. You remember telling everybody you and Sherry had it handled? You didn't have it handled. I had it handled. I've paid that bill on the first of every month for 9 years, and I had it run through a trust so it wouldn't have my name on it. Roy and the land. I laid down the last page. 14 months ago, the Hendricks estate put your ground up for sale. Quietly. If a developer had bought it, they'd have doubled your rent or pushed you off it inside a year, and you'd never have seen it coming. So I bought it. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that whatever was going to happen to my brother's livelihood, I wanted it to be me deciding, and not some stranger. I sat back. And then 3 days ago you stood up at our sister's table and told a room full of family that I had nothing to show for my life. The office was dead quiet. Outside the glass, the city went on about its morning, oblivious. Dale Whitfield, who has never in 60-odd years met a silence he didn't rush to fill, sat across from me and said absolutely nothing. First time in recorded history. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely there. Why didn't you ever tell me? Any of it? Why'd you let me think? Because I never felt the need to explain my life, I said, to people who'd already made up their minds what it was. He put his face in his hands. His shoulders went. And I let him sit in it, because for the first time in his whole loud life, my brother was sitting all the way inside a moment, feeling the entire weight of it land, and I wasn't going to be the one to lift it off him. After a while, he wiped his face with the flat of his hand and looked up at me, and what was sitting behind his eyes wasn't the brother I'd grown up with. It was something stripped down and honest. I've been a fool my whole life, he said. Plain. No decoration on it, for once. Not just Thursday. My whole life with you. And what I said about Ruth, I can't even know, I said. You can't. I know. He nodded, fast, miserable. I know. I let that be true between us for a moment. Then I closed the folder. Here's what's going to happen, I said, and his head came up. Ford's pulling the franchise. That's done. I can't change it, and frankly, the new car model's dying in towns that size anyway. But you've got a service operation that's actually good, Dale. The body shop, the repair side, the used inventory, that part's been profitable for years, and you never even noticed because you were too busy with the balloons and the billboard. I watched that land. Cardinal's going to convert the property. Independent service center, used car operation, certified pre-owned. You'll run it. Not own the land, that's mine now, and it's staying mine, but you'll run it on a fair lease, with terms a man can actually live inside. I'll send my operations director out next week, Hector. He's going to go through your books and your back office, and he is going to find a mess, because there is always a mess. He'll fix it. Dale was just staring at me. After Thursday, you're my brother, I said, and I meant every word of it, which surprised me a little, sitting there. I told you on the phone I might be able to help. I keep what I say. That's the whole difference between us, Dale, if you ever want to know what it is. You spent your life telling people how big you were. I spent mine making sure the thing was real, so I'd never have to tell anybody anything. He stood up, slow, and he looked around the office one more time. The deeds, the map, the blue dress in the atrium beyond the glass. All this time, he said quietly, and you just let me talk. I let you talk, I agreed. Talking never cost me anything. I came around the desk and put out my hand. Cost you everything, though. You might think about that. He didn't shake it. He grabbed me instead, both arms, the way Joanne does in the driveway, like he was making sure I was still real, and my loud, ridiculous, broken-down brother held on to me in the middle of my office and shook, and I let him. After a minute, he pulled back and wiped his face and tried to put himself back together, and he didn't quite manage it, and that was all right. For what it's worth, he said at the door. His voice came out rough at the edges. I'm proud of you. I should have said it 40 years ago. Get home safe, Dale. They said it might ice up. He nodded and walked to the elevator and pressed the button, and waited, and right before the doors closed I saw him. Not the loud one, not the billboard, not the one with the fountain at the entrance to his street. Just my little brother, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, and more honest than he'd ever been. The doors slid shut. I stood in the hallway a minute. Then I walked over to the atrium and looked up at the blue dress, the way I do most days I'm in the building. He finally knows, I told her. She just kept laughing at something off camera, the way she always will now. I drove home that evening with the heater going and the radio off, and the ice held off after all, and the reservoir was black and flat under a sky going pink at the edges. My son Caleb called while I was on 70. He runs our storage division now. Lives 20 minutes from the cabin with my 2 grandkids. And he was calling to remind me that Cole had a basketball game Friday and that I'd promised to be there, and that there would be hell to pay if I forgot. I told him I never forget the things that matter. He laughed and said, "Since when?" And I said, "Since always. You just weren't paying attention." And he laughed harder. I pulled into my own driveway and shut the engine off and sat there a minute, hands on the wheel, the way I do. Truck, same crack in the windshield. Same 11 acres Ruth and I cleared by hand the summer. We decided we'd built enough buildings for other people. And it was time to build one thing just for us. Some men spend their whole lives being loud, hoping the noise will add up to something. I spent mine quiet, building the thing itself, so I'd never need the noise at all. My brother lost the dealership. He kept the family. I'd say he came out ahead, and one of these days, I think he'll see it that way too. If this story got to you, do me a kindness and hit that like button, and subscribe if you're not already, because there's another one coming, and I'll see you when it does.